All right, so welcome to Creating Connections and Forming Foundations. We are from Paladin Career Technical High School. We are located in Blaine. We are a alternative high school, public, and about, what do you want to say, 180 students, 180 to 200 is kind of the amount we have. We are 9 through 12, so high school. Primarily, the speakers today will be me, myself, Samantha Ross, and then my co-host here, Amanda. And so we are going to just give a little bit of an introduction to both of us, and then we'll start talking about how we've kind of been structuring our, our school and supporting our students through COVID and before that. So I'm Samantha Ross. I'm licensed in social studies. I'm a student success coordinator, which here at Paladin means I'm kind of like an advisor. I have my own team of about 20 kids. I have for about 8 years now, which comes to a shock to me because I did not realize it was 8 years this year, but it is. 4 years at Paladin, and then the other years have been subbing and stuff like that. So I'll turn it over to Amanda.
Hi, my name is Amanda Tachik. So I'm the acceleration coordinator. Basically, it's my job to lead all of our new students through orientation. This is my second year as acceleration coordinator, but I've been working in acceleration my entire time here. So I started here as a Promise Fellow, and then they hired me on the year after. So I've been here at Paladin for 5 years. And I am also the Promise Fellow lead, and this is Heaven, and she's one of our current Promise Fellows.
So she's kind of being our tech wizard for right now, because we're used to doing all the Google stuff, so going back to Meet was a little bit of a challenge for a second there. I did want to kind of talk about our mission and vision, just because a lot of what we focused on when it came to adapting and flexibility right now during COVID has been related to what our mission and vision are. So I'm not going to read the whole thing because I know people can read this on their own. But I did highlight some of the big ticket words that we kind of stick to and follow. So community, social, emotional, academic growth, resilience, innovative, individualized, restorative, and trauma responsive. So when we looked at hosting this presentation, we really wanted to have kind of somewhat of an open forum talking about like what we've so far gathered from our experiences with COVID and teaching during this time, what our challenges have been and what our successes, and what can we share with other people in return, whether they're strengths or things that we need to work on, that we can help the network as a whole kind of do and be more successful with our students and our staff. So these are just kind of an introduction, like I said, to what we focus on at Paladin as a whole. But it is these ticket words kind of are threads throughout all of our school and community. So this year when we started, it was really about how do we adapt with COVID. So we ended last year with 3 months? 3 months in distance learning. Which was kind of a shocker to our system. And then, we started out this year trying to figure out what did we want to do going forward. And so one of the biggest things we wanted to focus on was our relationships, because that's really what ties all of us together here at Paladin. And so we always talk about like relationships. You'll hear Brandon, our executive director, say that all the time, because really, we wouldn't be here if we didn't have those relationships between staff and students. And so we knew right away that we had to start out with a hybrid model. And so we started our year, I know Avalon did something similar, and a few others did as well, choosing to do hybrid versus just distance learning or all in person. We're actually a part of the Anoka district, but not because we are part of the charter. And so it was kind of interesting to see like what the district as a whole is doing versus like what we were doing. I'm not going to go through every little detail here, but you can feel free to read it over it yourself if you want a little bit more example of what that looked like. But our focus was going to be on building that foundation in our acceleration program. which is where our new students all start. But at the same time, how would we support our returning students with this weird model that we were going into? And so it took us a lot of time to figure out as a team what would that look like and how we could support all our students equitably. And that's kind of what we're going to walk through some of that in just a few minutes here. But how do we build our classrooms to support that? How do we build all of our community to support our students and their parents and guardians the best way possible? And so we were really focused on making sure our seminars, which are our classes, ran as much as possible, trying to get some of that academic in there, but also being cognizant that students and parents and guardians are really going to need that extra support and time. And so we have a care team, formerly known as support team. So we knew we had to focus on the social and emotional parts of the school as well, not just the academic. And so we had a big push for getting donations. We have a food pantry here at Paladin. We have, students all get lunches and breakfasts and things like that for free. We also have a lot of connections with like Hope for Youth and stuff like that. So we have like a 30% population of homeless on our normal years. So housing for our homeless was big this year, especially with COVID. And then just, how can we support parents and guardians with kids who are working at home and who are working at their jobs. We also had the addition of a new team this year, which is the MIA team, which we'll talk a little bit more about making connections later, but making sure that our students aren't missing in action and that we can collect and keep connecting with those kids that are returning. But our biggest focus was going to be on getting new kids in and continuing to make sure that we connect with everyone we can.
And so one thing that we did differently this year versus previous years is our very first week back in school for our acceleration students, we had the first week dedicated to them being the only students on site. So usually we would have just one day where it's all of our just new acceleration students, and then the returning students would come back on day 2. And this week this year we felt it was really important to dedicate more time to them, and given COVID precautions and being able to space out a little bit more, we took that whole first week. And I think that's something that we found was actually really beneficial, and even moving forward without COVID, I think is something that we're going to consider in the next years as well. So for acceleration, we like to really get to know our students as a whole person, because we know that they're not just students, they're brothers, sisters, they're workers, all of that. And so we want to make sure that we're honoring that. And so when they come to us, we definitely want to get them set up for success education-wise and technology-wise. But as Sam said, what makes us special and what helps us be successful is the relationship piece. And so if you want to go to the checklist. So when we have students start, they go through this checklist, and that sort of, once these are complete, then they kind of graduate from acceleration, and then I transition them to a success coordinator. And some of these are, pretty standard, of like doing the handbook and that. But we also do morning circle. And so that is something that we use at Paladin a lot, especially when we're in person having more circles. Obviously that looks a little bit different virtually. But because acceleration students are on site, we are able to use the traditional circle model, where we have a centerpiece set up and introduce them to what circle is, get to know you questions. So a lot of times we'll do would you rather questions, just keep it light in the beginning. And then for talking pieces, we all make sure to, all the members of the acceleration team bring in their own item. And that's one way that we connect with them too. So I would share like, this is my item and this is why, so they get a chance to know something about me. And then Seven and EJ and Bryn as well, who are usually here for the acceleration day one, also get a chance to share a piece of themselves. And I think just starting off in that model of like, we're willing to share, so hopefully you're willing to feel comfortable and share with us, is sort of that first piece of building that relationship. If you look at the personal assessments, it's kind of a goldy color. We do 3 different personal assessments as well. So we do a true colors quiz, which is a little bit of like a personality test. Tells you a little bit about like maybe your work style or how you like to, whether like you're more organized or if you're more of like a people connection person. And then love languages, which is how you like to give and receive love or affection. And then our 1-word intention note card. So we have all of our students pick a word that it could either embody them or something that they're trying to work on. And they write it down on a note card, and then I keep a little basket of all the note cards for the whole year, and that stays as part of our circle centerpiece. And so it's kind of nice to like feel that energy from them, and that it stays with us for that year. And then some of the other stuff is a little bit of tech training, things that needs to get done. And then another piece of that relationship foundation is meeting the staff. So we will have somebody from our care team come in and they meet with all of our new students. We watch a video short, it's called Kitful. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. But it helps lead a conversation into ACEs and why that's important and why we do that here at Paladin. Because we know that if they're struggling or have struggled with things, that's going to affect how they learn and how they're going to open up to us. We also have them meet with a staff who talks about what is restorative practice and what does that look like here. Same for experiential learning. And then also just some of those other pieces of work-based learning or college and career. But we just really like to get them involved in meeting as many staff as possible and learning about all the different things that Paladin has to offer.
Amanda, can I interrupt a second?
Yes.
I think there's a person trying to get in, but I'm not the host. Is that true? Kariana just emailed me and wanted the link, so.
So on my end, I don't have anybody waiting.
Okay, well, just keep your eye on that in case she jumps on.
It should be open just in case.
Okay, thanks.
We take away the waiting room, but
The other thing I was gonna add is, as far as resources that we're showing, we're pretty, I think, open to sharing. So
Absolutely.
if you can't see something, because I know some of it might be kind of small, we can definitely share this out to people if they're interested as well. So we can definitely get you figured out with that in a little bit.
yes. And I would say like just the last piece of the meeting staff is, so Adam, he's our technology wizard. He will come in and do some of the tech training when he's available, just to have that other connection with the staff member. And then there's one other thing on the list that I'm sorry. I lost it. Oh, our math assessment. Yeah, I just have places. So we also do a math assessment for all of our new students, just because it's important to see like where they're at, what they remember. For some of our students, they haven't been in school for a while, and so they might need a refresher. And what's really cool is that this year we've incorporated a new math assessment that was created by both of our math teachers. And then every student meets one-on-one with them to go over that assessment, like question by question, so that they really do get a sense of, oh, this is just a refresher, or they were never taught this and they need to learn that. And I think that's one thing that's been really cool and helpful, especially with math, which is I think a subject that more people tend to struggle with, that they build that connection that's positive. I know my own experience with math in high school was terrible. I had a horrible teacher, and I love that even if they had a horrible experience in the past, they get to meet John, or John, because I both name John. They get to meet them and have this like positive male role model who's so compassionate and understanding with math. And I just love that that gets to be part of their introduction to our school.
It's been a really positive inclusion this year. So I think our students have felt a lot better about it. So it was really great to share that piece this year.
So some of the other pieces that we incorporate, so we do project-based learning here, in addition to seminars and classes. So this is just a slideshow that I go through with all of our new students. If you go to slide 3, Sam. Slide 3, it's really just kind of the overview of what that looks like here at Paladin. This slideshow is constantly, being revised, getting feedback. I know 7 this year, coming in new, was able to provide a new perspective, and we took that and reworked the slideshow for that purpose. We just talk about, some of the like Foundry that we use here, like how to use that, what does credit look like? And as I go through this with them, they are filling out a worksheet, and I will always pause, let them know the answers, but it's just one way for them to sort of get that piece of like writing it down, hopefully helping them remember it a little bit more. And then they take that with them so they can always look back at it. And then I also have linked this slideshow to our Start Learning page. So we can go to our Start Learning page. So this is where we have all of our important links for all of our students. And then what's really cool is Acceleration has its own little tab, and it has all of those other pieces of like how to access a printer, our love languages quiz, our ACEs study, and then one of the guided projects for our that they would do to sort of get out of Acceleration. And so we think it's really important for not only to have the accessibility of all the things that I'm teaching them in Acceleration that they can then link back to, in addition to contact with me or somebody else from the staff.
And we've been really intentional. Like I said, we've gone through all of this with kids this year already. I think we started out with a good chunk of students this year. I'm trying to remember how many, it was 20 something at the beginning of this year, I think. And so each week or every other week, we have more kids that are signing on and coming in and enrolling. So this process is going on, at least a week at a time, each every other week. And so it's been really impressive to see. Just think about like each one of these students is in a different spot. We're not talking about like all the same ages. We have some that are seniors. We have some that are freshmen. Like we have all high school levels coming in. So it's very impressive to see this project or this program, I like to call it that, being so successful. And even this year, it's been really impressive. So
and I think the last piece of Acceleration that I really wanted to show was our Google Classroom. Again, the accessibility factor of students who are, even if when we were on hybrid, there's still students who are working from home or other, individual situations where for some reason coming in wasn't going to work. Having the Google Classroom component is definitely new this year, but it does help us. So like we have the biography email, so they write us basically an intro about themselves, and that gets shared with every staff member with their picture, 5 project ideas, and we use that to get their minds going about project-based learning, but also to teach them some of the tools of like Google and Explore and how to cite their sources in that. And then just a couple like short questions of like how maybe a poll question, one of them is, and one is like a short answer, so they can see how some of their Google Classroom check-ins might be in their classes as well. And then the checklist is linked there for them too if they're ever like questioning. So those are just some of the new things and some things that we've maybe improved this year.
Yeah, most of the Google Classroom stuff is brand new to us. I mean, not me, but brand new to the school as a whole.
Yeah, it's definitely been a much bigger focus.
Yes.
Um,
How long it normally takes students to go through acceleration?
Yeah, so our acceleration process, I would say is from 3 days to a week. So that checklist that they're doing, some of those are really short. I would say the biggest piece is they have to do a mini project to get out of acceleration. And so that was, they were linked in the Start Learning page. So they either do a project like an autobiography, a dream vacation project, or a historic dinner, giving them choices based on, maybe their interest or content that they need. And then they get a chance to kind of do a mini project and make sure they know how all the steps work. And so I'd say that's the biggest piece. We do want it to be a mini project, so we try not to have them spend a ton of time on it. But I'd say, yeah, three days to a week. Right now, we've been doing shortened days. So we have on-sites, but when we had students on site, it was until 1:30. And so it was a shorter day. So it has been maybe taking the full week this year, just with those shortened days. And just, I know Sam said we don't have students. The one caveat to that is we do have all of our acceleration students still on site. So we do every other week of new starts. Right now we have a limit of 3 students, just for safety precautions and being able to distance. But so our acceleration students are on site. We think that's really important to their success. And we feel like with the three students, it feels safe. We've only had 1 student who did acceleration through distant learning. And I would say it's a struggle to do it that way. But if you're doing a one-to-one distant learning, it can work. It's just, I don't know how successful we would be if it was multiple students in like a seminar format in acceleration.
Yeah, that was something we were really intentional about this year too, is making sure that if we got anybody in the building, it would be those acceleration students would always be here just because they are brand new. And we need to start building those relationships. And of course, those who have the highest need as well. So just that was very intentional as a team that we chose to have acceleration be here every day.
Yes. So even when we were in hybrid model, acceleration was here every day until they finished the entire checklist. But other students who are here were on site there 1 day, or possibly 2 if they were also on the appointment days. But I think that was a big piece to our new students and why we have been successful in keeping them, even as we've had to go less and less on site.
And so we did want to talk a little bit about how we were supporting students, both new and old. One of the things that everybody's talking about this year is like, how do we give technology, technological equity? I mean, we are a one-to-one Chromebook school, so each one of our students has a Chromebook here, and or if they, well, it kind of went into a gray area because we did have some, what do we call it? You had to pay like $50 down payment to take it home. We've kind of waived that this year because of the distance learning. So students are allowed to take home their Chromebooks and a charger because that was the only way we could possibly function. So that is something that we had to talk about and decide. We did end up selling some of our old Chromebooks too because they were out of date. And so some students got to do that as well. We did end up buying a few hotspots. I don't know how many we have right now, but I know most of them are in use a lot of the time. And then of course we were really advocating whenever we can. Our care team is helping find some sort of free internet access. There's been a lot of deals out there through different companies, like just trying to figure out how best we can connect our kids, because we know it's not all possible for everybody. And so how can we help students still meet that expectation, or how can we figure out to continue their academics without it, as the other half that's not mentioned in there as well. Our community also, like our school community, spent a ton of time before school started writing grants and grants and grants and lots of grants. And so our technology was thankfully updated, and we finally got smart boards, one of which we're using right now. And we also got cameras that can be adjusted and moved around so that we can see full rooms versus just your personal camera on your Chromebook, things like that. And same with the microphone; they're both built in together, and so it's like it looks kind of like a squiggly worm-like technology webcam. Those were really great for us because we did end up going hybrid, so that meant we had to teach in person and online, which was quite the adventure. And we'll probably be seeing that for a little bit of time yet. But that was a really big help, and I know that's not available to everybody. But we make do and individualize the best we can. I think the biggest time saver we have had is Google Voice, though, because we have to have some sort of access to our students. We do have a limited number of school cell phones, but oftentimes there's not enough for all staff. And we don't necessarily want to give out our personal numbers to students or parents or guardians. So our school does utilize Google Voice. Some of us got on when it was free. I believe it does cost now. I'm not sure what, but I'm not sure if that's still, they were changing some things around being Google. But we do use the Google Voice to contact parents, guardians, and then students really like to text. And so they will also do that. So we've been very thankful to make good connections that way, and to check in, whether it's us as success coordinators, Amanda as acceleration lead, all of us are working together to try and make sure that we're in contact with students at least, if not every day, at least as often as we can. Make sure that we're keeping them off the MIA list in a sense. If anybody knows anything about Paladin, a lot of time it is about our wizard. Adam is amazing. He's our tech guy here. He spent the entire summer redoing the Start Learning page, which Amanda did mention briefly, and I opened it up. This is completely redone from what it is. It's very user-friendly now. He laid it out so that students have their own links to things. So we have academic resources, we have like our credit website, guided projects. Like these are all the topics on their own essentially here, but these are like some of the big tools that we use. It's laid out, all the Google Classroom stuff. We have it linked right here. Students are very easy to click on. And some of the other stuff that we focus on to keep kids going. We also have the opportunity for things like independent learning. Schedules are on here. I will click on the independent learning one just because that has tons of options as well. So if students are working or they're just not able to get into their classes every day or things like that, we have lots of options that they can do on their own, including some of the Google Classroom stuff. I think that was one of my points coming up here was the fact that our Google Classrooms are pretty much brand new for some people and our staff. Some of us have been doing it, but this year we made it mandatory that all classrooms must have a Google Classroom. So because we were teaching hybrid, it was imperative that we were engaging both online and offline with students, and so we had to have that option. So each one of our courses does have that classroom, but we also have them so that students can use them after that as well. And so if there is a class that they need, but maybe it's not being offered at this time, oftentimes we will have an alternative or something that's going on in an independent study like Google Classroom. Like our art is only offered every once in a while or every other block, but we have one that they can do stuff on their own in a Google Classroom format. And so we're really spreading out our ability to individualize with people, and making sure that our classrooms are offering the best that we can in the best ways we can.
Sam, one other thing on technology, which as you're going through, on our Start Learning page, in our top links, you'll see that we have night school and help desk. So little owl and then the little, I don't know, yellow box with headphones guy. Those are just other accessibility things. So our help desk is manned throughout the day by staff. So if anybody has a quick question and they just want to jump on, that's there. And then our night school link is there for our students who, like Sam said, maybe they're working or just can't get online in the mornings. So night school is offered Monday through Thursday, and it's drop in from 4 to 8. So any student can come in, just click that link and reach some staff. So
Yeah, yes, exactly. That's the one. This year, we've also had a great opportunity to continue working with some of our amazing partners. Sarah Sanas is our college and career person, and she is amazing at making relationships. And we've had some big organizations that we've been working with, and our students have really enjoyed this year. It's given them a lot of opportunity to be out, even despite all COVID stuff. Like they have been working really hard. It's been great to see our kids on site, taking precautions and everything with COVID, but it's been great to see them out there working with some of these companies. Tree Trust and Youth Build is still happening right now. They're a really cool company about tree trimming, building houses for Habitat for Humanity, things like that. So you either choose to go working with like greenery and tree trust, or you kind of go towards the youth build side, which is more about building carpentry. Finishing trades is another one. They currently just went online, but they were working in person for a while. And that is focusing on like construction, so drywalling, painting, anything like that. And so we have, I'm trying to think of how many students we just had. I think we had 7 to 8 in youth build right now, and then we had a couple in finishing trades, but we did just have the new semester of finishing trades starts in January. So we'll see kind of where they're at. But we had like 9 or so kids apply at one point. So our kids who struggle in the classroom or don't have as much, technology skills or things like that, they are still being serviced in different ways through our partnerships. And so that's been really great to have those options still, and that they have still been successful along with keeping all those precautions and keeping our kids safe. So it's been really good to see that, and them adapting with us for when we have our schedule and stuff like that. So it's been really great to see those partnerships staying. And that's just one of many that we have. And some of them have changed this year, obviously, because of the COVID precautions and things like that, which we're thankful for, like I said, helping us in whatever ways they can. So really, results so far, we were kind of talking about this today because it's hard to tell because we only are pretty much 3 going on 4 months in. And I know everybody's probably watching their results as we are, just to kind of see where we're at. So take these all with a grain of salt in a sense, because we don't know if this is going to be a trend for sure or not yet. But things that we have found so far have been the credit earned is comparable pretty much to when we were teaching in person previously. So we talk about at this point all the way back in March of last year, like our students are still earning a decent amount of credit. It is less than normal, but it's not that much less, which is very impressive. And so students who are in person obviously tend to get more credit. But if a student was working independently previously, they earn about as much as our students are earning right now. And when I talked to our tech person, he said it was pretty much less than 10%. So it wasn't like a huge amount of difference between the credit being earned, which is phenomenal in our mind, because that means that our students aren't necessarily losing a lot or not making enough credit to the point that we are super, super worried. So it's been really good to hear so far. We'll see now that we switch back to distance learning, because that data was kind of coming from when we were at hybrid. Now that we switch back again, we're interested to see what is going to happen. So our gaps on some of our data, talking about, free and reduced lunch, sped, racial gaps, anything like that have actually been minimal, which we didn't have or haven't had extreme gaps before at Paladin. We do have them, just like every school, but they have been minimalized in the past, 6 months or so that we've had COVID. Was more than that now. I don't know. The biggest ones that we've seen is free and reduced lunch and paid lunch. There is no gap right now, which we thought was pretty phenomenal. Usually we do have a little bit, and actually our free and reduced lunch, he said, is actually outperforming our students who have paid for lunch. So that's pretty interesting from our end. We have had some, we talk about graphs all the time because our tech guy is really big on graphs. Some of our gaps have flipped, but not increased. And so he was talking about our ratio of African American Black students to our white students, and that's a gap that everybody's paying attention to a lot of the time. And so what has happened here is that usually our African American Black students outperform the white students. But this year it actually has flip-flopped, but the gap hasn't increased, which basically comes down to that our African American Black students probably were coming in with some other needs this year, starting out than our white students did. So it could be a matter of just accessibility. I'm thinking, and from my view, is that a lot of them were coming in with social and emotional needs that we had to support first before we could focus on the academics. Whereas our white students maybe are more privileged and didn't have that opportunity or have that issue, not opportunity. And so it's been kind of interesting to see how that has played out and if that's going to flip back again. And then our hybrid versus distance learning gap, we haven't had one. So students who were in our hybrid program and coming to school versus students who maybe were distance learning based on parent need or whatever, there was no gap between those students. They were achieving about the same in the past 3 months that we've had. Attendance, that one's kind of a hard one because it has increased if you look at the numbers, but the caveat is that we're counting it differently. And so here at Paladin, it's been really focused on just engaging with the student. And so it oftentimes has been what did you do today? Oh, okay, you worked on this. So it wasn't necessarily you showed up to a classroom because we're trying to maintain connection as much as possible. We're interested to see how this goes in the future, mostly because as any charter school around, we're worried about our numbers, unfortunately. But that is the bottom line of things. We have to make sure that we hang on to our students for their own sake and for ours, just to make sure, we provide the services we need to. So luckily, we are so far hanging on to our students. We haven't had many transient students. And so we're hoping to maintain those connections and continue to engage however we can as much as possible. So, do you have any personal experiences you want to share about any? Or what you've thought about?
Yeah, do we have a slide on MIA or no?
We don't.
Okay. So I am also part of the MIA team. So those students who maybe not connected as much as we would like to see. So they're on a separate little list that I think there's 5 or 6 of us who are on that team. And so we meet and we kind of talk about, the students who missed maybe 10 or more days of school so far, or if we just haven't been seeing a lot. And so we make sure that we take that extra initiative for us to figure out maybe a lead staff member who's going to put in that extra effort to try to reach that student. We've definitely done a lot of text messaging and calling, but we will also, if we need to, do a home visit. Sometimes if we will call them hey, we're going to drop off some food for you. So we definitely will keep that engagement as much as possible and use whatever resource we have, whether it's we're going to bring you some food or just a phone call to check in. We know a lot of our students are dealing with a lot of things outside of school. So we take that into consideration, and sometimes the staff members who are getting connections are just there for the social and emotional needs. And like Sam said, we'll get those done first and then focus on those academic needs. But we just feel like engagement is definitely our number one priority, and making sure that they feel connected and cared for. And yeah, I got to do a home visit last week, or the week before, 10 months, I don't know. But it was really fun to just be able to knock on a door and see a kid, even if it was standing 6 feet from their front door. But it makes a difference. You can see them light up to see you, to know that you're willing to go that extra mile for them. So that's at least my personal experience with doing that. So
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. It has been phenomenal. And I know that a lot of schools don't have the opportunity. Like we have the opportunity to go and see some of our students. Because we have our own vans and stuff like that to transport and deliver stuff and things like that. So it makes a little bit of a difference. But if you have the opportunity to actually go visit a student and just say hi, like we did some of that during the last spring too, Amanda and I, and it was just, I didn't even know some of those students really, because they were just so new, and it was just like, they were just so grateful, and their smiles on their faces were just so huge. It really has made a difference just reaching out to them however possible, or just giving them a call. Sometimes it's just like, oh, I'm glad you really called, like I haven't talked to anybody, or like, you know, you finally get that kid to answer online, and they speak finally after like a year. I mean, it's been phenomenal. The quietest students, and just, yeah, taking the opportunity and being able to see their faces when you can has been phenomenal. And so I'm very thankful for the Paladin team and community, because it really has been a tough year so far, but it has been, I don't think we've ever been stronger. So we've really been working together. So that's kind of been my personal experience as well.
yeah, I also found, especially last year when we went into distant learning, I've had a lot of success in reaching students by mailing out cards.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know if other students or other schools do it, or we have like on our weekly announcements, our daily announcements, like birthdays for that week. I mailed out so many birthday cards and graduation cards last year. And one of our initiatives that we usually do at the end of the year, but we've talked about doing it earlier, is just sending a card to every single student. And I know we're small, so we have that ability that not everybody does. But just to tell them that we love them, that we're thinking about them, and recognize, you know, some sort of strength that they have. And the feedback we get from that is always positive. So just another technology-free way to reach out.
So we've got a little over 10 minutes left, and we have some questions in the chat. I don't know
Yeah,
if
we're actually right to that time, so we don't want to keep yammering on. We could do that for
Questions
hours.
or
So yeah, if anybody has questions or what has worked well for your school, or what you need some help with, definitely bring them up, Seven, if you want.
Okay, I've got a question about the shortened days, like how we're allowed to do that. Apparently they were told by school admin that it doesn't meet any requirements.
Oh, yeah, so we had shortened days were for our on-site time, but we still had classes running the full days. So that was how we did that.
And then how do you balance caring, addressing social and emotional needs, and not enabling healthy or unhealthy choices and decisions?
Yeah, that's a good one. Read for me one more time. So
How do you balance caring or addressing social and emotional needs and not encouraging unhealthy decisions and choices?
Well, I think what works, or the reason that it works, is that we definitely take a team approach to things. So whereas like I might have the strongest relationship with a student, but because of that, yeah, maybe I will be more lenient or fall into some of those, but because we work as a team, there's always that extra accountability. So I have a student who, she just has always struggled and getting her to focus or do things. And I know so much of her personal story that I tend to have maybe shifted to more of an emotional support, which means I don't always want to push as hard academically, but that's why I'm paired up with another staff with that student. And so between the two of us, we can sort of combat that together, where I can let them know like, hey, I think you're pushing a little too hard, let's pull back. And where she can also pull me in to say like, okay, you need to push a little harder. And I think that is how we kind of approach every student. Every student should have a team, not just a staff who's their go-to.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I've often been on the other side of that too, where I'm also a success coordinator, so that means I oftentimes have to take the academic hard way. And so I may not be that student's emotional support or social support, like their main person. And so maybe somebody from our care team is, or maybe they have a therapist, or maybe another teacher is, or another success coordinator. Like, there's never just one of us that is a student's I guess there is and there isn't. Like, some of us are their person, but they also have other people that are behind that person supporting as a team. And so we always are making sure that each student has somebody that they can talk to. And then that somebody is kind of the point person for that little team in a way. So.
Is there other questions?
No, those were the big questions that I got. I just want to encourage anyone, if you have more questions or you want to share something that's worked well in your school, if you turn your camera on or unmute yourself and introduce yourself, we'd love to hear from you.
Well, I just also want to thank Paladin for being the first school share. This is Carrie from Avalon and one of the MLCN coordinators. I think there's a lot of power in this. I think we're all learning and trying to figure out how to adapt what we do in this environment. And so to make a plug too, is that we do have a pocket of money for MLCN members to collaborate. And it could be as simple as having, brainstorming sessions back and forth. Maybe if you are, Paladin's a master at onboarding and being super clear with students about the whole school and really giving it lots of attention. And I know that's something that Avalon can always work on. Maybe it's even presenting at a staff meeting, but if there's ways that we can learn from each other this year and get strategies, we continue to send out the application, but it's real short to collaborate. So taking advantage of what you are doing and sharing it with others would be awesome.
Yeah, for sure. Anytime. We're always looking for more of a network. So anytime.
It's great. Are there any final questions?
Checking away, Seven. Is there anything else?
All right. No problem. Yeah, I invite you for a tour, but when COVID's over, you are welcome to come visit us anytime. Brandon loves having visitors when it's not COVID. We're working on trying to figure out digitally how we could do a digital tour. I don't think we figured that quite out yet, but feel free to contact myself. I'll send out our contact info out. I'll send Brandon's contact info out. I'll share some of those resources, like I said. Feel free to take what you need and adapt it however you need it.
Thank you, Samantha. That checklist would probably be pretty awesome to get.
I know that's been a pretty hot commodity in the past, so I know that for sure that we'll send that out. So
yeah, that sounds good. Thank you, Amanda. Thank you, Seven. Thank you, Samantha, and everyone that is joining us today. And I wish you the best and keep in touch.
thank you.
Thank you.